He's there. I'm just going to send him the link.
I see.
Because he's come back from work. I think he's going to change or something like that. So,
So we'll start.
Yeah.
yeah. Don't forget to record.
Yeah, it is recording. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Shri Haraye Namaha. Shrikanto Matulo Yasya Janani Sarvamangala. Janaka Shankaro Devaha Tam Vande Kunjarananam. Yonta Pravishya Mama Vachamimam Prasuptam. Sanjeevayatyakhila Shakti Dharaswadhamna. अन्यांश्च हस्तचरणश्रवणत्वगादीन् प्राणान्नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यम् ॐ नमः प्रणवार्थाय शुद्धज्ञानैकमूर्तये निर्मलाय प्रशान्ताय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः सदाशिवसमारम्भाम् शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां. Shri Haraye Namaha. Namaste to all of you. So we are entering into Dakshinamurti Stotram. We saw an introduction to it and a couple of verses that describe Dakshinamurti, the form of Dakshinamurti. We saw the legend behind Dakshinamurti and what it tries to convey from a teacher and a student relationship and how teaching is imparted. We studied some verses. Mauna Vyakhya Prakatita Parabrahma Tattvam Yuvanam Varsishtante Vasadrishi Ganaira Brahmanishthaihi Acharyendram Karakalita Chinmudram Anandamurtim Swatma Ramam Muditavadanam Dakshinamurtimide. We saw a couple of other verses too. Those are all verses that help meditate on the form of Dakshinamurti. A very beautiful form of Dakshinamurti, as you can see, is so congenial for meditation as such as Guru, the form of Guru and its Guroho Murtihi Sada Dhyayet. The form of Guru is to be meditated on. So that aids the meditation of Guru. So with that and with the Ishvara Kripa, we get into the text of Dakshinamurti Stotram. The text of Dakshinamurti Stotram is very simple. It is just 10 verses. That's all. But Mahatmas have seen a lot of value in that. And in the tradition, it is studied initially before the study of Prasthanatraya Bhashya. And it is also studied after the Prasthanatraya Bhashya. So initially it is studied to get a glimpse of the teachings of all the Upanishads. And at the end, it is studied so that it is more a way by which the seeker reminds himself as to all the things that he has learned in the Upanishads. So it is looked upon as both as an both as an introduction and as a summary. So it gives an abstract of Vedanta first, and it also helps as a summary, and it helps one with nididhyasana, meaning meditating on the teachings of Vedanta. So getting these 10 verses by heart and just reciting them and chewing on the meaning is what the seeker gets into in nididhyasana. So having said that, we thought we would go approach Dakshinamurti Stotrams through the lens of Manasollasa. So every great teacher has given a lecture or written a book on Dakshinamurti Stotra. In fact, all the popular Swamis and Swaminis have dealt with this stotra, and everybody has dealt it in their own style. But to me, I as a seeker, I thought it is better to just follow Sureshwaracharya and his way of explaining this and his thought process, so that we stick on to the tradition. That is one purpose. The other is, it is the tradition and Sureshwara who is giving the ideas and not anybody's individual idea. So uh, there is a twofold prayojana for this. So I thought we would go about like that. So the text of Manasollasa. Manasollasa is a Vartika on Dakshinamurti Stotram. So generally, explanatory texts are of different types. There is Bhashya, and so Bhashya is more towards explaining what is said in it, the Bhasha, and expressing the idea that is there in it. And Shankara Bhagavad Padacharya, Ramanuja, Madhva, they all, Sri Vallabha, all of these great acharyas have done bhashyas for Prasthanatraya, or at least one of the Prasthanatraya. So that is how they become a Vedanta Acharya. So there are almost 10 different sampradayas that are very popular, having 10 different ideas, which are close in some aspects and not so in other aspects. But when we talk about Vedanta, the word Vedanta refers only to Advaita Vedanta. So rest is all Upasana Marga and other things. But when we talk about Vedanta, it is just Advaita Vedanta. So in the Vedantic tradition, there are so many explanatory works, Vartika, Bhashya, and so on. Vivarana is a very beautiful way by which they explain a text. So Vivarana, there is a Vivarana Lakshana. I don't remember the shloka now, but the intent of Vivarana is to explain or to make it simple as to what the author wants to convey, as well as convey the surrounding ideas the author did not convey in the text. So it is going to be a little more elaborate than the original text, and it is going to have other ideas that the author did not convey. That is not how a bhashyam is. Bhashyam generally sticks to the original idea of the author as such. So a Vivarana is more than that, and it helps somebody to approach this text through Vivarana and study it through the Vivarana. So Manasollasa is a beautiful Vivarana on Dakshinamurti Stotram. And another thing that is very helpful with Manasollasa is the language of Manasollasa. The language of Manasollasa is very, very simple. So just reading that, even Samanya Samskrita Jnana is enough to be able to appreciate and get the idea that is conveyed by Sureshwaracharya. So let us begin studying Manasollasa as such. And when it comes to Dakshinamurti Stotram, we'll learn the verse by repeating it multiple times. But Manasollasa, you can just read it by yourself or just follow what I'm reading. So there is a Mangala Acharanam for Manasollasa. He also starts with a prayer. Mangalam dishatu me Vinayako, Mangalam dishatu me Saraswati, Mangalam dishatu me Maheshwaro, Mangalam dishatu me Sadashivaha. Vinayakaha me Mangalam dishatu. Let Lord Ganesha give us auspiciousness. Simple. Saraswati me Mangalam dishatu. May Ma Saraswati, who is the embodiment of learning, give us auspiciousness. Mangalam dishatu me Maheshwari. The Shakti of this universe, Maheshwari. Let that universal mother bless us with auspiciousness. Mangalam. Mangalam dishatu me Sadashivaha. Sadashiva is another synonym for Dakshinamurti. That is the reason why the famous verse Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam. Starting from Dakshinamurti, the Guru Parampara comes through, and Shankaracharya is a prominent personality in that, and it comes through Asmadacharya Paryantam. To the teachers of today, we salute that Guru Parampara. May So all these are just seen as different facets of Ishvara. That's all. He is not calling out different devatas here. Mangalam dishatu me Vinayako, Mangalam dishatu me Saraswati, Mangalam dishatu me Maheshwaro, Mangalam dishatu me Sadashivaha. Mangalam dishatu. Let they all give us auspiciousness. Atma labhat paro labhaha nanyadastiti munayo viduhu tallabhartam kavistauti swatmanam parameshwaram. A beautiful verse. Atma labhat paro labho labhaha. So prathama vibhakti, because of the grammar rule, it becomes labho. Atma labhat paro labho nasti iti munayo viduhu. Tallabhartam kavihi stauti swatmanam parameshwaram. Munayah atmalabhat paraha labhaha na asti iti viduhu. This is the first idea that is conveyed. Of all the different gains that we can get, of all the different things that we could gain, Atma labhat paraha labhaha na asti. To gain the knowledge of this self, or Atma labha is the term that is used. To know the nature of one's own self, to gain the nature of one's own self, seems to be the best gain that one could gain in this lifetime. Atma labhat paraha labhaha na asti iti munayaha viduhu. Mananashilaha. These great sages say that there is no greater gain than gaining the knowledge of one's own self. This is the reason why tallabhartham, to be able to gain that knowledge, kavihi stauti. Kavihi. Kavi means a poet. Here, the author of Dakshinamurti Stotram is the one who is indicated, who is Shankara Bhagavad Padacharya. Kavihi stauti, stutim karoti. He is, so the Kavi, the poet, to be able to gain that self-knowledge, what he is doing is, he is doing something very beautiful. Swatmanam parameshwaram stutim karoti. He is praising Parameshwara, who is non-different from the Atma. Swa Atmanam, who is our own self. Parameshwaram stauti. He is saluting that Parameshwara who is non-different from the self. This is a very peculiar stotra because there is no other stotra like this, I think. There is one other stotra which is like Harimide Stuti of Shankara, which comes exactly the same as Dakshinamurti Stotram, which is also of the same theme. There are not very many stotras like this. So, where the Ishvara who is saluted is the self itself. In fact, at the end of this Ullasa, meaning this chapter in Manasollasa, Sureshwaracharya says a very beautiful verse. Ishvaro gururatmeti murti bheda vibhagine Vyomavat vyapta dehaya dakshinamurtaye namaha. That Dakshinamurti, who is Ishvaraha Guruhu Atma iti Murti Bheda Vibhagine, who has these Murti Bhedas, who as one consciousness is of looked upon as in three different ways. One is Ishvara, the other is Guru, and the other is one's own self. Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine. How could that be possible? Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya. Like how the same space, it is there even in where I am sitting and in where you are sitting. The same space is what gives us the accommodation. The same way, Vyomavat Akashavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. So the indication is Svatmanam Parameshwaram Kavihi Stauti. Atmalabhat Parolabhaha Nastiti Munayo Viduhu Tallabhartam Kavistauti Svatmanam Parameshwaram. And then Swechaya Srishtamavishya Vishwam Yo Manasi Sthitaha Stotrena Stuyate Anena Sayeva Parameshwaraha. He defines that Parameshwara. I quoted a verse from the end of this chapter, but here, right as the next verse itself, Sureshwaracharya quotes, defines this Parameshwara. Yaha swechaya srishtam vishwam avishya. Yaha, that Parameshwara, who swechaya, by his own will, swa ichchaya, srishtam, having created this universe, avishya, vishwam avishya, srishtam vishwam avishya, having created this world, he enters this world. That needs to be explained. So this is a concept of the Shruti. Tadeva nupravishat tadanupravishya tat srishtva, having created, tadeva nupravishat, he enters into it. Meaning, there are two things that are seen in this world. One is the matter principle that is there. Everything here around this world is pure matter. And then it is not just matter that make up this world. There is also consciousness principle that is there that enlivens this universe. We see in every living being that is there, that living being is conscious. So when we see this universe, it is just two things that are there. One is matter and the other is consciousness. So tat srishtva, having created matter, he entered into that matter and breathed consciousness into it. This is a very poetic way of saying it. Actually, this needs to be explained and understood, and it will happen in the course of us learning this Dakshinamurti Stotram. Swechaya srishtam avishya vishwam yaha, that Parameshwara, having created this world, who entered into this world, in the sense who is there as every Atma that is there in this world, and he is also available for our meditation. Manasi sthitaha. He becomes a Vishaya for my mind. Manasi sthitaha. That Parameshwara, because we have a mind, and that mind is capable of meditation, and that in that meditation we are going to meditate on Ishvara, and that Ishvara is of a certain characteristic, and that characteristic of Ishvara is that he created this universe and entered into this universe. As we study these verses, this will become much more clearer. Swechaya srishtam avishya yaha manasi sthitaha, that Ishvara stotrena stuyate anena. That Ishvara who is being praised in this stotra. So this stotra is not about an Ishvara who is external, rather than who is in this universe, a part of this universe. In fact, he is a part of us all. Yaha swechaya srishtam vishwam avishya manasi sthitaha saha parameshwaraha eva anena stotrena stuyate. Let me get to the next concept that Sureshwaracharya wants to put forward. So Sureshwaracharya frames Manasollasa in a very beautiful way. So he says there is a disciple and there is a guru. So this Dakshinamurti Stotram is being taught to the disciple by the guru. So why is he teaching that? So obviously the disciple should have some questions for which Dakshinamurti Stotram seems to be the answer from the Guru. So this is how Sureshwaracharya presents it. So before getting into that questions that are in the mind of the disciple, the later people who have written commentaries and explained Dakshinamurti Stotram make one important point here at this juncture. And I thought I would also mention that. Generally, human tendency is to entertain thoughts all the time in the mind. In fact, anytime we are in the waking state, we are awake, our mind constantly is thinking about one thing or another. But if you classify this as to in three big buckets, generally one big chunk is all the past that has occurred and the events of the past. We we like a cow, we seem to bring that all back to the mind, chew it again and relive those moments for some reason. That is one type of activity that happens in the mind. Another type of activity is worry about future. What is going to happen? What is that? And there is that needs to be done, this needs to be done. If this happens and that happens, that won't happen. There is a lot of thought about the future. Neither the past is of any use today, nor worry about the future is of going to be much use either. And if you really think about somebody who really lacks chitta shuddhi, mostly when his mind is not in action, these are the two things that would really get into his mind most of the time. Except for the fact when we watch TV or do something else where we disengage the mind. So anytime we engage mind, past and future seem to come and sit there. Like that seems to be the general pattern of thoughts that we seem to entertain because of all the vasanas that we have accumulated over time. But as a baby, as a small child, this amount of vasanas are not there. So you wouldn't see a child with this kind of an attitude. Rather, the child does a very, very unique thing, which is it is very inquisitive and it inquires on things. So a child is constantly investigating and learning as to, oh, how does this work? And what is this? So it is constantly in the mode of learning things. So if we classify our thought into three buckets, so leave the past, leave the future, now a constant inquiry and inquisitiveness is what gets a mind that is much more tranquil and not being tormented by the vasanas of past and future. This is a point that these Mahatmas mention at this point and say, hey, whoever due to past good karmas has gotten their mind to a certain level of tranquility is able to investigate or ask questions as to how things are. So they get into a certain level of inquiry. They become inquisitive. So with that inquiry, they get into the study of Shastra. They learn a certain concepts. And then with that cursory study, they are not very clear. And that with that kind of an attitude, they approach the teacher and ask questions. So this is how it is presented. So the main idea that is conveyed is that it requires a certain level of chitta shuddhi to be able to get into Shastra Vichara or Atma Vichara. Or else this Jagat simply bombards us with so much of thoughts about past and present. So with Ishwaranugraha, that subsides to a certain extent. It is not, we cannot eliminate that, but to a certain extent, that thought pattern does subside for somebody who has a basic level of chitta shuddhi. And as chitta shuddhi increases, this also will increase. So with this idea, let us go into the rest of the verses. So these are the questions that the disciple is asking. Asti prakashata iti vyavaharaha pravartate tacca astitvam prakashatvam kasmin arthe pratishthitam. Asti prakashate iti vyavaharaha pravartate tat astitvam prakashatvam cha kasmin arthe pratishthitam. Asti, it exists. Prakashate, I perceive it. Iti vyavaharaha. This is how all activity is. So there is something that exists and I am able to perceive it. I am able to see it. There is a chair, I see a chair. There is a computer, I see a computer. There are people on the screen, I am able to see the people on the screen. Asti prakashate iti vyavaharaha pravartate. Tacca astitvam prakashatvam kasmin arthe pratishthitam. Teshu teshu arteshu va kim sarvatmani ishvare va. This is the question. He asks that in the second verse. Kim teshu teshu va arteshu kim va sarvatmani ishvare ishwaratvam cha jivatvam sarvatmatvam cha kidrisham. So I see multiplicity of objects so that I am able to understand. I see a chair, I see all of these objects around me, and then I am able to know it. So this knowing part, that existing there, no questions about it. Asti. Prakashate, I am able to perceive it. So there is one thing common in this perception, which is all these multiple objects are there, but I am the one who is perceiving it. So this perception seemed to be with me. The object is external. So does this perception belong to me? What is the locus of this perception? Because the question comes because I am able to perceive, somebody is able to perceive, you are able to perceive, everybody perceives an object. So the perception, is it all on an individual level or at a universal level? Universal level is what he refers to as Ishwaratvam here. So asti prakashate iti vyavaharaha pravartate tat astitvam prakashatvam cha kasmin arthe. In what is the locus of that perception? Pratishtitam teshu teshu arteshu va kim sarvatmani ishvare va. So is this perception at an individual level or is the perception at a universal level? So because for anything to be able to exist, existence and perception has to go hand in hand. So if somebody says there is a flower in Antarctica, so nobody has seen it, but then if somebody says that, unless there is a perception of that object in their mind, then we will not be able to perceive it. They describe it, it is blue, it is like this and so on. So there is a certain level of description that is given for any object, even for an object that we have not seen. Then we immediately relate it to a blue flower that we have seen here and then somehow make a mental object out of it. But even that object is perceived by us mentally because of all the other associations that we have with the objects. So that perception is only in me. So these multiplicity of objects seems to exist, and there is this perceiver and there are so many perceivers. So what is the locus of this perception? So this might sound a little hard from a Vedantic perspective, but as we go through this text, these things will become much more simple. Kim teshu teshu artheshu kim va sarvatmani ishvare va. Then ईश्वरत्वं कीदृशम्? ईश्वरत्वं च जीवत्वं सर्वात्मत्वं च कीदृशम्? So he wants to know what is the nature of this Ishvara, who is the universal perceiver, and Jiva, the individual perceiver. And you seem to say that perception is universal. Sarvatmatvam cha kidrisham. How is this possible? What is the nature of Ishvara? What is the nature of this Jiva? And what is the nature of this all-pervasive nature of this Atma? We can explain these things in so many ways. But generally, the question here is about the crux of Vedanta, which is it boils down to three different things that are being talked about. One is the individual, which is the Jiva. Then the second is Ishvara, who is both the controller of this universe as well as the Sarvatma. And the third is this Jagat, this universe that is in front of us. So we have not seen Ishvara, but I know I exist and I know Jiva exists. So, and Ishvara, though not available from a Pratyaksha Pramana, he is not Pratyaksha Pramana, he is Pratyaksha Pramana Agochara alone, but still he can be, he is an Anumana Pramana Vedya Ishvaraha, because we can always postulate on it and say that there is an order in this universe. So this order has to have somebody who is intelligent behind this universe. And that intelligent principle is what makes this possible. So obviously you can give a name to that intelligence principle and call it Ishvara. So some intelligence behind this universe is always, you can make an Anumana out of it. So these are the three things, and these are generally the subject matter of Vedanta: Jivatva, Jiva, Ishvara, and Jagat. So basically, Sureshwaracharya puts forward that what is the nature of these things? So this is the question that being asked by the seeker. He gets one more Janiyat khatam jivaha kim ta jnanasya sadhanam ज्ञानात् तस्य फलं किं स्यात् एकत्वं च कथं भवेत् जीवः तत् कथं जानीयात्. How can a jiva understand this? What is the means of that knowledge? Kim tat jnanasya sadhanam. Jnanaat tasya phalam kim. By knowing that, what is that we are going to gain? Ekatvam cha katham bhavet. How does this this aikyam of Jiva and Ishvara happen? So it might sound as though like how can a lay listener have these questions? So as we presented earlier, it is not a lay listener who is asking these questions. This person has understood some concepts of Vedanta. He has seen that there is Jiva, Ishvara, and always people say Jagan Mithya, Ishvara, Jiva, Satyam, and consciousness is the only thing. And they say they put out so many concepts there. They put out so many axioms there that somehow it sounds all good when it is being taught, and then but by the time we come home it all doesn't make sense, because that is not what reality is. So that kind of a seeker who knows some basis of Vedanta and who is ready to question and get clarity from the Guru is the one who is asking these questions. Of course, the translation that I'm putting forward are from Malladi Shastri.
Mahadev Shastri. Mahadev Shastri.
Alladi Mahadev Shastri. Thank you, uncle. So his translation is there. That seems to be very simple. Of course, there are so many other translations as well. So with that, give me 1 second. Okay. Sarvajnaha sarvakarta cha kathamatma bhavishyati sishyaha pratitham prichantam vaktumarabhate guruhu. this is another question that is put forward. Sarvajnaha sarvakarta cha katham atma bhavishyati. If Ishvara is the all-knower and he is the karta, who is the cause of this universe, how can that Ishvara become Atma, or the I consciousness that I have? Katham Atma bhavishyati. Sishyam, this disciple, pratitam prichantam. This disciple who is asking these questions is whom the Guru is addressing. Vaktum arabhate guruhu. The Guru starts to teach this disciple. So with that introduction, we go into the first verse of Dakshinamurti Stotra. Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So can we chant this?
We can't see your screen. We can see you.
We can see you, not your screen.
Oh, really? Oh my God. Okay. Oh, you didn't see my screen earlier too?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, we didn't.
Just we are seeing you only.
Oh my gosh. Oh, give me 1 second. Oh. Okay. So you didn't see any of these slides.
No.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, we see that.
Okay. Are you able to see now?
Yeah.
Okay. I apologize. Okay. So if you don't see my screen, please do point. So so these are the verses that I read through. Mangalam dishatu me Vinayako, Mangalam dishatu me Saraswati, Mangalam dishatu me Maheshwaro, Mangalam dishatu me Sadashivaha, Atmalabhat parolabhaha, nastiti munayo viduhu, tallabhartam kavistauti, swatmanam parameshwaram, swechaya srishtamavishya, Vishwam yo manasi sthitaha, stotrena stuyate anena, sa eva parameshwaraha. And then we saw that we are not interested in any of the past or in the future. The mind gets into the state of inquiry for somebody who has a certain level of chitta shuddhi. And then with that chitta shuddhi, he is asking questions. Asti prakashati iti vyavaharaha pravartate, tatcha astitvam prakashatvam kasmin arthe pratishtitam. What is the locus of this perception? Because I see a lot of objects and I am there who is the perceiver. So I want to know the locus of this perception and all these objects. Kim teshu va artheshu kim va sarvatmani ishvare ishvaratvam cha jivatvam sarvatmatvam cha kidrisham. So what is the nature of Ishvara? What is the nature of jiva? And you seem to suggest a sarvatma, that consciousness is universal. I want to understand that concept. And janiyat khatam jivaha kim tad jnanasya sadhanam jnanat tasya phalam kim syat ekatvam cha katham bhavet. How can jiva to be understood? What is the right knowledge of these things? What is the means to that knowledge? What is the means of jnana, and what is the jnana phalam? So I want the sadhana as well as the phalam. So I want to know how I can attain something and what do I gain by attaining that. How can Jiva and Ishvara be one? You seem to suggest that Tattvamasi or Aham Brahmasmi and all, that seems to be the teaching of the Upanishads. And how can that be possible? Because that is not what is I feel in my perception, in how I feel. So these are the questions that were asked. Again, I apologize. Sarvajnaha sarvakarta cha kathamatma bhavishyati sishyam pratitam prichantam vaktum arabhate guruhu. Guruhu ittam prichantam sishyam prativaktum arabhate. He starts to answer that Shishya. And what was his answer? So here comes his answer. So this is the first verse of Dakshinamurti Stotra. So let us study this verse. Can I have one volunteer who can chant with me, please? Anyone? Say yes.
I can read.
Okay.
Vishwam
Vishwam
darpana drishyamana nagari tulyam nijantargatam pashyannatmani mayaya bahirivod bhutam yadha nidhraya ya sakshat kurute prabodha samaye swatmanamevadvayam tasmai Sri Guramurtaye namaidam Sri Dakshinamurtaye.
Obviously, you know, Bhaskar uncle knows this and he has studied this. So, Vishwam darpana drishyamana nagari tulyam nijantargatam pashyan atmani mayaya bahirivod yatha nidraya yaha sakshat kurute prabodha samaye swatmanamevadvayam tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye namayidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. This is the first verse and it is in the meter, I think it is in Shardula Vikriditam. I'll refer and confirm that. It is a very beautiful meter to recite. Vishwam darpana drishyamana nagari tulyam nijantargatam pashyannatmani mayaya bahirivod yatha nidraya yasakshat kurute prabodha samaye swatmanamevadvayam tasmai Shri
Shri Guru.
Gurumurtaye namayidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. A beautiful meter there. So a couple of very important ideas are conveyed here, which is the essence of the Upanishads. And all these 10 verses are going to be like
What happened?
We lost Arvind, I think.
Arvind, yeah.
Yes, we lost him. He'll come on because Anu's also logged in. So she'll tell.
Yeah, he actually had an issue with his computer. He said he'll just log back in.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now we see your screen.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, the screen is back. Oh,
Are you able to see my screen?
yep.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Small technical glitch. Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Vishwam darpana drishyamana nagari tulyam nijantargatam pashyan atmani mayaya bahirivod yatha nidraya yasakshat kurute prabodha samaye swatmanamevadvayam tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye namayidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. So there are a couple of important ideas that are conveyed, and as we saw, this is supposed to be an essence of the teaching of the Upanishads. So the Anvaya goes something like this. Darpana drishyamana nagari tulyam nijantargatam vishwam nidraya yatha atmani mayaya bahihi udbhutam iti pashyan yaha prabodha samaye advayam swatmanam yeva sakshat kurute tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye Shri Dakshinamurtaye idam namaha. Anyway, I did not say the Anvaya to be intimidating or anything like that. We'll study this and it will be very simple. So let us look at what are the key phrases that are there in this. So Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam. That is one phrase that conveys one idea. Nijantargatam. That is another phrase that conveys another idea. Pashyan Atmani Mayaya Bahirivodbhutam Yatha Nidraya. That is another idea. And the fourth idea is Yaha Sakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye Swatmanameva Advayam. And the fifth idea is Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. So if we can piecemeal this and study every phrase separately and get the idea that it is trying to convey, I think this will make sense to us very easily. Vishwam Darpana Drishya. Let's take it from the Kriya Pada. That is very easy. So there is always a verb in anything. So Namaha is the verb here. So it is very easy. So I salute. Who do I salute? Idam Namaha. Let this Namaskara be to whom? Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Shivaya Namaha, Vishnave Namaha, Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. To that Dakshinamurti, let this Namaskara be. So there is a Viseshana for Dakshinamurti. Gurumurtaye Dakshinamurtaye Idam Namaha. Shri Dakshinamurtaye Idam Namaha. He Parameshwara, Shriya Maya Shaktya is generally how it is interpreted. So Shri is the Shakti. So He Dakshinamurti, who is along with his Shakti, Anugraha Shakti, who is also our Guru, Gurumurtaye Namaha. Let this Namaskara be. Tasmai, this Tasmai, Yasmai, that Yasmai is what the rest of the verse is. So who is the one who is going to be saluting that Dakshinamurti? That person, as to what that person is what the rest of the verse describes. Let's look at the verse, the other three lines. So Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Nama Idam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. That is a very easy phrase. Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam Nijantargatam. As we saw, these are two ideas. Vishwam, meaning this universe. Darpana means a mirror. Darpana. Drishyamana, the reflection that is seen in the mirror. Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam. Nagari means a city. Nagaram is a city. Nagari Tulyam. Tulyam means it is equal to that. This Vishwam, this universe, is like a city that is seen on a mirror. Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam. Let us just take just this phrase for today. Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam. So it would make much more sense for us, because if you go to, say, Chicago, and in the Millennium Park or in any of the high-rise buildings, they would have big reflecting glasses. And if you see on that glasses, you would see the whole city on that. It is so beautiful to see it. What the Acharya conveys is that, hey, like how you see a reflected object on this mirror, this universe is like that. So he gives a comparison for this universe to the reflection of a mirror. So why does he give this comparison? So we shouldn't confuse it more than what the example is intended to convey. So we have to understand it just to the level that what is to be understood from the example, we need to understand it. So we shouldn't extrapolate it. So many a times if somebody says your face looks like that of a moon, so does that mean that I have craters on my face? No, that's not the intent of that explanation. It's just that it is beautiful. We should leave it at that. So Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam. There are 3 or 4 major ideas that are conveyed by this example. First, because there are 2 things that are addressed in this verse. One is, what is the nature of Jiva and what is the nature of Jagat? What is the, because in the list of questions, there were a lot of questions that were asked by Sureshwaracharya. Unfortunately, I did not have that. I was under the impression that the slides were on, but that would have made much more sense rather than looking at me, which probably did not serve any purpose. But Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam Vishwam. So the reflection that is there in the mirror, the adhishtanam is the mirror, and the adeya is the reflection. Meaning, the reflection is dependent on the mirror. So when we see an object in the mirror, that object depends on the mirror for our perception. The adhishtana is the mirror there. And the adeya, the reflection, depends on that adhishtana. So the mirror has an independent existence, but the reflection that is shown on the mirror has a dependent existence. So mirror is independent, but the reflection is dependent on the mirror. So obviously, without the mirror, there is no reflection. With the mirror, there is reflection. So mirror is independent, the reflection is dependent. Mirror is the adhishtana, and the reflection depends on that adhishtana. And there is a and mirror is swatantra satta, whereas the reflection is a paratantra satta. The reflection, for us to be able to perceive, depends on the mirror for its existence. It is paratantra, but the mirror is not dependent on anybody. Even if there isn't anything to be reflected, the mirror is just there. It is swatantra. The technical word for this independent swatantra adhishtana is satyam in Vedanta. And this dependent adheya paratantra satta is called mithya in Vedanta. So these are 2 technical terms. Many people use it very casually, but that is not how it is intended in Vedanta. So the satta of this Jagat depends on something. That is the idea that he is going to finally convey. But the example conveys that the mirror is satyam and the reflection is mithya. The mirror is swatantra, the reflection is paratantra. The mirror is the adheya, the reflection is the mirror is the adhishtanam, and the reflection is the adeya. So this is one of the idea that is conveyed by this example, Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam. There are much more ideas that are conveyed by this example, which is that the mirror is asanga. The mirror does not get involved with the contents of the reflection. The mirror is not affected by the reflection. The mirror is asanga, and the reflection is multitude. There are so many things that are seen. There are so many buildings that are seen in the reflection in the mirror, but the mirror is a single object. It is advaya as well. So this satyatvam, this asangatvam, and the advayatvam is what is conveyed by this example. Of course, we'll go through this once more and then study the rest of the verses. And I'll have much more explanatory slide with each of these words with Anvaya and simple English meaning. by Alladi Mahadeva Shastri that we can follow. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Tat Sat. Shri Krishnarpanamastu. Okay.
Thank
Vaishali ji,
you.
you can stop the recording. So,